The wind screamed across the white hills like a beast searching for prey. Snow fell harder with every minute, blinding the soldiers trying to keep formation. Their boots sank deep into the frozen ground as they moved toward the northern ridge. None of them spoke, not even the humans who usually complained the loudest. Something about this war had turned them all silent. Private Mason kept his head low, shielding his face from the sharp ice. He didn't know who started the war only. That one day, the sky filled with ships, and within weeks, half the colonies burned. Now they were marching to a place called Sector V-19, where an alien outpost had gone dark 3 days ago. The command said it was just a comms failure. But Mason had seen enough to know lies when he heard them. If the outpost had gone quiet, it wasn't because of snow or broken wires. It was something worse. Something alive. He glanced at Sergeant Dren, one of the Ziari allies. She was tall, her skin covered in sleek silver scales, eyes glowing blue, even in the storm. She walked ahead of the humans like she didn't feel the cold at all. Some soldiers hated the Ziari, others admired them. Mason didn't know how to feel. But he knew one thing, they weren't the enemy anymore. The squad reached the edge of the hill. Below them, the outpost sat in silence. Lights were off, no movement, no smoke. Just one broken antenna waving weakly in the wind like a dying hand calling for help. Sergeant Dren raised her arm. Everyone dropped to the ground instantly. The snow tried to bury them, but no one moved. Through his scope, Mason spotted something. By the main building, a dark shape in the white. Small, still, not moving. They waited 5 minutes. Then 10. The wind didn't let up, but nothing came out. No traps, no sounds. Dren gave the signal. Mason's squad advanced carefully down the slope. The silence wrapped around them like a blanket soaked in fear. The snow was deeper near the building. One soldier had to dig his leg out of a hidden drift. Mason gripped his rifle tight. His boots cracked the ice with every step. Then he saw it. Up close, a figure, kneeling, chained to a steel post half buried in snow. It was a girl or maybe a young woman, not human. Her skin had a faint glow, almost like moonlight. She was thin, shivering, and barely clothed. Her arms were chained. Behind her back, frost had already claimed her lips and fingertips. No one moved at first. Not even the Zayari sergeant. The girl raised her head slowly, her eyes flickering open. They weren't like any eyes Mason had seen before, wide, deep, shimmering like stars. She didn't speak. She didn't cry. She just looked at them. Mason stepped forward before anyone else. His squad didn't stop him. They only watched. He removed his cloak and wrapped it around the alien girl. Her shoulders jerked like she hadn't been touched in days, maybe longer. Her body was cold, but her eyes never left his face. Who did? This to you? Mason whispered. The girl blinked once. Then slowly, she turned her head toward the outpost building. Her chains rattled softly. Her silence screamed louder than any words. Dren came forward and knelt beside Mason. She inspected the chains and spoke in her language. The girl didn't respond. Mason didn't need a translator. She was broken, but alive. And that was enough. For now, a loud noise cracked through the snowstorm. The squad ducked low. A second bang followed, echoing from the building's rear. Mason raised his weapon. Dren signaled the team to fan out. They were no longer alone, but Mason stayed beside the alien girl. He wasn't going to leave her again. Not when someone had left her here like garbage. His cloak wrapped tighter around her small body as her lips parted to speak. Her voice was barely there. A whisper in the storm. They said I wasn't one of them anymore, she said. Mason felt a cold crawl up his spine, but not from the snow. Whatever happened here wasn't just war. It was betrayal. And this girl, this chained, freezing girl, was the first sign of something much worse. Asterisk, the team spread out around the silent outpost while Mason remained beside the girl. Her body trembled under the cloak he had given her. Snow clung to her hair, turning it white like frost-covered threads. She looked up at him again, but there was no anger in her eyes, only confusion, and something deeper. Something broken. Sergeant Dren ordered 2 soldiers to cut the chains. The girl flinched as the metal was touched. It was clear she expected pain, but no pain came. The cuffs dropped into the snow with a dull clink. Her arms fell weakly to her sides. She didn't run, didn't cry, didn't speak again. Inside the outpost, the rooms were cold and covered in frost. No bodies. No blood, but there were signs of struggle. Chairs overturned, supplies scattered, walls scorched by plasma. Whoever attacked didn't leave in peace. And they left nothing behind but silence. The comm system was destroyed, melted, as if someone didn't just want to stop messages, but erase all records. Dren cursed in her native tongue. She had seen this before. Mason looked at her, and she simply nodded. This wasn't an accident. It was a message. The girl tried to stand but collapsed. Mason caught her before she hit the snow. She was lighter than he expected, almost weightless. Her body had gone too long without food or heat. He lifted her carefully, shielding her from the cold wind. She didn't resist. Dren scanned the area again. "We need to move," she said firmly. "Now, this place is not safe anymore." Her voice didn't carry panic, but it carried something close to fear. And that told Mason enough. They moved back toward the rendezvous point. The girl was silent in his arms. Her head rested against his chest. Her skin was cold as stone, but her heart still beat, faint but steady. That was all Mason needed to know she wanted to live. The storm began to shift. The wind died down, but the sky darkened. Something moved above the clouds. A shadow. No one else seemed to notice, but Mason did. He watched it glide across the sky without sound. He didn't say anything, not yet. Once they reached the shelter, the soldiers took position and formed a perimeter. Dren called command, but there was no signal, only static. Mason laid the girl down gently on a thermal pad. A medic approached but stopped when the girl opened her eyes. She whispered something again. Mason leaned in, trying to hear. "I was supposed to die here," she said. Her voice cracked like dry ice. "They left me for the snow to finish what they started." Then she closed her eyes again. Mason looked at the others. No one spoke. Some looked away. Some just stared at her like she was an animal dragged in from the wild. But Mason saw more than that. He saw someone discarded because she didn't fit. Because she wasn't like the rest. He asked Dren in a low voice, "Do you know what species she is?" Dren shook her head. "Not Ziari. Not from any Alliance records I know. Her physiology is unfamiliar." Then she looked down at the girl and added, "But someone chained her like a traitor, not an enemy." The fire crackled softly as night settled. One of the soldiers finally brought food and set it near the girl. She didn't touch it. Her hands curled tight, as if afraid someone would punish her for even reaching. Mason knelt beside her again. "You're safe here," he said slowly. "No one will hurt you." "Not anymore." She didn't reply, but her hand moved slightly toward the food, then pulled back. Her fear ran deeper than cold. Dren stood over them. "We'll move at first light. If command doesn't answer by then, we go to secondary fallback." Her eyes met Mason's. "But she stays under your care. She trusts you, not us." Mason nodded without hesitation. As the fire warmed the inside of the shelter, Mason couldn't sleep. He stared at the girl lying under the cloak. Who was she? Why was she left to die in chains? And what kind of people did that to one of their own? The snow outside answered with silence. When the first light of dawn touched the frozen hills, it didn't bring warmth. The snow had stopped falling, but the cold remained like a warning. Mason stood outside the shelter, watching the sky. It was too quiet, too clean. Even the birds that sometimes circled these zones had vanished. Behind him, the girl stirred under the emergency cloak. She had slept little, waking often, her eyes searching for threats in the shadows. Now she sat upright, her legs tucked tightly against her chest, as if she still expected chains to pull her back down. Dren walked toward Mason with her helmet off, frost clinging to her armor. Command is still silent. Secondary fallback is 7 clicks east, across the ridgeline. We move in 20 minutes. She paused, looking at the girl. She won't survive the wind in this state. Mason didn't answer. He crouched beside the girl and gently offered her a heated ration pack. This time, her hands didn't retreat. She touched the pack, then slowly brought it to her lips. Her fingers trembled, but she ate. For the first time since they found her, Mason saw a spark of life in her eyes. "What's your name?" he asked softly. The girl looked at him. She hesitated, then whispered something in a language he didn't know. It was melodic, almost like singing. Dren came closer and listened, but shook her head. "It's not any major dialect I've studied," she said. The girl tried again. She placed a hand on her chest. "Kelra," she said more clearly. Then her hand reached toward Mason's chest, gently touching the fabric. "Human?" He nodded. She blinked slowly, repeating, "Human." The squad began packing gear, checking weapons, sealing medkits. Time was short. Mason helped Kelra to her feet. She winced in pain. Her legs were still weak. He wrapped his arm around her waist for support. She didn't resist. She leaned into him like someone who had nothing left but trust. They moved out in formation, 2 flanks guarding the front and rear. Kelra and Mason stayed near the middle. The wind had picked up again, howling low through the narrow pass. Ahead, visibility dropped, but they kept moving. No one wanted to be caught in the open for long. They had barely reached the second ridge when a low humming filled the air. Dren raised her fist. Everyone froze. The sound grew louder, vibrating through the snow. Mason scanned the sky, heart pounding. Something large passed overhead, triangular, dark, silent, but heavy in presence. It wasn't human tech. It wasn't Ziari either. Whatever it was, it moved like it owned the sky. And it didn't stop. It just flew past, heading west, toward the wrecked outpost they had left behind. When it was gone, no one moved right away. Dren looked grim. "Recon drone," she muttered. "They're searching for survivors, or witnesses." Her eyes fell on Kelra. She wasn't supposed to live, was she? Mason didn't respond. He already knew the answer. They marched faster. Snow crunched under their boots as the ridge sloped downward into a forest of frostbitten trees. Ice clung to every branch. The sky above had turned the color of bruised steel. Kelra's breathing had become slower. She was struggling. Mason stopped and gently adjusted her weight on his back. "She's not going to make it at this pace," he told Dren. "We need shelter. Now." Dren scanned the terrain. Cave system 1 click southeast. "Move." The squad altered direction and descended into a narrow gully. The trees grew thicker here, their branches forming sharp claws over the trail. Finally, they found it, a hollow opening in a jagged cliff face. They entered quickly, setting lights and posting guards at the entrance. Inside, the cave was cold but dry. The air smelled of old stone and dust. Mason laid Kelra down beside a lantern. She had passed out. Her skin looked pale, almost gray. Her fingers had stiffened. The medic checked her vitals and shook his head. "We need heat fast." Her systems shutting down. Mason didn't hesitate. He stripped off his own insulated coat and wrapped it around her. Then he lit 2 heating cells and placed them near her sides. She didn't move, but her breath began to slow in rhythm. Her survival was hanging by threads. Dren stood near the cave mouth, speaking quietly into a damaged comms unit. Static replied, Still nothing, she said. They've cut off this whole zone. We're alone out here. Kelra opened her eyes just once before sleep took her again. She looked at Mason, her lips parting with one broken word. Safe, she whispered. Mason nodded and took her hand in his. Kelra's breathing steadied. But her body remained dangerously cold. The heating cells slowed the chill from reaching her core, but she needed warmth, food, and time, things they had in limited supply. Mason didn't move from her side. He kept her hand in his and watched. Every breath she took. Outside the cave, the storm returned. This time it wasn't natural. Lightning struck in red arcs. Thunder rolled without warning. Dren stood at the entrance, eyes locked on the sky. The clouds churned in unnatural shapes, like something massive moved behind them. The other soldiers stayed quiet. They had seen war. They had seen strange things on distant worlds. But none of them had seen a prisoner left in the snow like Kelra. And none of them had seen a sky break open like this. Dren finally turned around. We're not just being tracked, she said. We're being hunted. They know we found her. And they're coming to erase the evidence. Mason didn't need to ask who. There was only one answer. Whoever left Kelra chained in the snow didn't want her to survive. They wanted her forgotten. Erased from memory like the outpost she came from. Kelra stirred again. Her voice was weak but clearer than before. You shouldn't have saved me, she whispered. They marked me. If you stay near, they will mark you too. Mason leaned in. Why did they do it? He asked. Why did they chain you outside like that? Kelra closed her eyes. A tear slipped down her cheek. Because I wouldn't become like them, she answered. Dren listened quietly, her jaw tense. What? Were they trying to make you? She asked. Kelra didn't reply. She only turned her face toward the wall, her body curling tighter beneath the coat. The medic handed Mason a small injector. It will stabilize her. But it'll hurt. Her body's not human. It might react. Mason took it and gave her a warning. This will help, he said. Kelra didn't resist. He pressed the injector to her shoulder. She gasped in pain, but stayed still. Within minutes, color returned to her cheeks. Her breathing grew stronger, her fingers flexed. The spark of life grew brighter. Mason smiled for the first time since they found her. She was fighting to live. She wasn't giving up. A high-pitched whine echoed through the valley outside. The cave walls vibrated with a low hum. The soldiers grabbed their weapons. Dren peered out, then pulled back. Drones, not scouts, hunters, they're sweeping the ridge. We can't move her yet, Mason said. She's too weak. Dren nodded. Then we hold the cave, quiet, no signals. No lights, no fire. She signaled the team to form a perimeter around Kelra. Night fell fast. The drones passed above once, then again. Each time, they grew closer. Their search was slow, patient. They weren't looking for heat. They were looking for movement, sound, life. Kelra gripped Mason's arm. There's something you must know, she whispered. They are not just coming for me. They are coming for what I carry. Mason's eyes narrowed. What do you mean? She pressed his hand against her stomach. They put something inside me, she said. Something they couldn't control. When I refused to obey, they left me to die before it grew. The words sank deep into Mason's chest like ice. Dren heard it too. What is it? She asked. Kelra shook her head. I don't know. But it's alive. And they fear it. That's why they want me dead. The wind outside shifted. The sound of engines drew nearer. The cave began to glow, faintly from lights above the trees. Mason moved closer to Kelra and whispered, Then we protect it. Whatever it is, we protect you. Kelra's eyes shimmered with tears. She didn't speak again, but she held his hand like it was the last warmth left in the world. The sound of approaching engines grew louder. The cave vibrated with pressure as something passed overhead. It wasn't a ship meant for rescue. It was a hunter designed to track, capture, or destroy. Dren's hand tightened on her weapon as she whispered a silent command to the others. They powered down their equipment and backed away from the mouth of the cave. Mason placed his body between Kelra and the light bleeding through the trees. His hand remained on her shoulder as she gripped the coat tighter around herself. A new kind of fear settled over the squad. It wasn't the fear of death. It was the fear of being erased, of vanishing without trace. They all knew what was out there. They had no illusions left. This was no longer about war. It was something colder, darker, and deeper. Kelra shifted slightly. Her breathing had calmed, but her eyes stayed wide open. She was listening to the noise outside, and she understood it better than they did. "They're searching for the signal inside me," she said quietly. "It wakes when I'm afraid." Mason leaned in. "Can you control it?" She shook her head slowly. "Only when I'm calm. If I panic, it pulses. They can find me that way. They always do." Dren turned to the squad. "We don't move unless we're forced. Block every line of sight. No noise. Nothing that breathes louder than the snow." The squad took defensive positions within the rock formations. One soldier covered the entry, another watched the back tunnels. The cave was narrow but deep. It was their only shield. They just had to last the night. Kelra clutched Mason's sleeve. "I wasn't the first," she said. "There were others before me. They didn't survive. I heard them screaming when the cold came. I was the last one chained." Mason tried to ease her. "Mind, you're not alone anymore. We'll get you out. No matter what they've done to you, we won't let them win." She nodded weakly. Her hand reached up and touched his face. "You gave me warmth when I had nothing left," she said. "That memory is stronger than their machines." Suddenly, one of the outer soldiers signaled. Movement, light between the trees. Then shadows. Not one, several. Dren moved to Mason and spoke softly. "They're on foot now. 3, maybe 4, scouting the cave. We may not be able to hold position much longer." Mason stood and looked at Kelra. "If they find us, what will they do?" She answered with a whisper. "They will take me, and kill anyone who touched me. That includes you." Dren made a decision. "If they're close, we strike first. Silent, precise. No open gunfire. We eliminate and vanish into the lower tunnels. We protect her. That's our mission now." The squad nodded. No orders needed repeating. They moved out like ghosts in snow, weapons drawn but silent. Mason remained behind with Kelra, ready to carry her if needed. Outside, the footsteps grew louder. Crunches in the snow, metal boots. The enemies didn't speak. They were trained to be shadows too. But one of them stepped too close to the entry. Too bold. Dren struck first. Her blade sliced silently through armor. The figure dropped without a cry. Another rushed forward, but met the same end. The rest fled into the trees, retreating to regroup. Inside, Kelra's body began to glow faintly. Her skin shimmered with soft light, like fire under ice. Mason backed away in shock. "What's happening?" he asked. She clutched her chest. "It's waking. It senses danger. It wants to defend me. But I don't know how to stop it." Dren rushed back inside. "We've got 5 minutes before they return with heavier force. We need to move." Now Mason picked Kelra up in his arms. She was warmer now, but her body pulsed with strange energy. She buried her face against his chest, as if trying to hide the light coming from within. The squad moved through the back tunnel of the cave, deeper into darkness. The rock narrowed, then opened into a hidden passage leading down the mountainside. They didn't know where it ended. They only knew it was away from the hunters. And for now, that was enough. Asterisk, the tunnel narrowed as the squad moved deeper underground. The air was damp and heavy, the walls slick with cold moisture. Mason held Kalra close to his chest, feeling the strange warmth growing inside her. Her light pulsed through the dark like a heartbeat trying to guide them forward. Behind them, the sounds of the hunters faded, but Dren wasn't fooled. "They will find the trail again," she said. "We bought time." That's all. The path curved sharply and then opened into a hidden chamber beneath the mountain. The room was natural, formed long ago, with glowing moss that gave off a faint blue hue. It wasn't much, but it was shelter. And for now, it was safe. Mason laid Kalra down gently on a rock platform. Her eyes opened slowly, and the light in her skin faded a little. She was breathing better now, stronger, but the energy inside her was still unstable. It was not finished yet. Dren looked around and motioned for 2 guards to cover the rear passage. "We'll rest here for 1 hour. Then we move toward the river path. If we reach the base, we can signal a gunship from the higher ridge." Kalra turned her head and looked at Mason. Her voice was steadier now. "I don't know what's growing inside me, but it wasn't born from hate. It was born from fear. My fear, my pain. And now it has its own will." Mason sat beside her. "Whatever it is, it's part of you. We're not afraid of it. We're not afraid of you." She closed her eyes and breathed in deeply. "If it becomes dangerous, you must stop me," she said. "Promise me, don't let it hurt others." Mason's jaw tightened. He didn't answer right away. Then he placed a hand on hers. "We'll protect each other. That's the only promise I'll make." A tremor shook the cave floor. Dust rained down from above. The guards raised their weapons. Dren crouched low and pressed her hand to the stone. "Explosives. They're breaching from the surface. They're coming straight down." Kalra sat up on her own. Her body glowed brighter. Her eyes shimmered like twin moons. "They'll destroy everything to get to me. They don't care who dies, only that I disappear." Mason helped her to her feet. She didn't need to be carried now. She stood on her own, her posture straighter than before. The energy inside her no longer looked wild. It looked focused, alive, a force awakening for the first time. The squad readied for a last stand. They knew the fight would come within minutes. There was no escape left. Dren turned to Kalra. "If you have any power left, now is the time to use it." Kalra stepped forward. Her voice rang through the cave like music and thunder. "Together, I am not their prisoner anymore. I am not their experiment. I am not their mistake." The cave shook again, but this time from within. Light burst outward from Kalra's chest, sweeping over every surface. The moss glowed brighter, the rocks trembled. Mason shielded his eyes, but he didn't look away. A shockwave erupted as the ceiling above shattered. Enemy soldiers dropped through in metal armor, weapons raised. But before they could fire, Kalra raised both hands and spoke in a language none of them understood. The invaders froze. Their weapons flickered. One by one, they dropped to their knees as if gravity itself had betrayed them. The light from Kalra wrapped around them, locking them in place. They couldn't scream. They couldn't move. Then the light vanished. Silence filled the chamber. The soldiers were unconscious, alive but powerless. Kalra collapsed too. Her knees drained. Mason ran to catch her before she hit the ground. Her pulse was faint but present. Her body had done what it needed to do. Dren approached slowly. "Is it over?" she asked. Mason looked down at Kalra, who was finally sleeping in peace. He nodded once, then turned to the others. "It's not over. But she's free. And that's where it begins." They carried her out of the chamber into the morning light. The snow had stopped. The sky was clear. For the first time in days, the wind didn't bite, it carried hope. Kalra was no longer a prisoner of fear. She was no longer alone. She was no longer chained in the snow. She was alive, and someone had given her his cloak when no one else did.